Triggers. Now we move on to the saviour who put the city on his back, kept his head down and never looked back.
I want to talk about representation in the arts. Specifically, I want to focus on Arab, Muslim and Asian representation in the arts. So I'm here with actor and broadcaster Mim Shaikh. So Mim, I've got a couple of questions, quick fire questions.
Okay, cool.
You've got to say the first thing that comes to your mind.
No room for thinking.
No room for thinking.
Cool, I'm ready.
You can give a reason or explanation afterwards as well.
Okay.
Okay.
Can it be long or like
Yeah,
short?
whatever you want to say.
Whatever just comes, all right, cool.
Riz Ahmed or Idris Elba?
Riz Ahmed, first person to put me in a short film, has to be Riz.
Okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Guz Khan or Russell Howard?
Russell Howard I don't find funny. Guz Khan I actually find funny, so it has to be Guz Khan.
Man like Mobeen?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay. Pakistani cinema or Indian cinema?
Okay, this is a tricky one. I'm more familiar with Indian cinema, but my mum's the biggest Pakistani cinema fan. So I'm gonna go with Pakistani cinema, but I'm more a fan of Indian cinema, if that makes sense.
Do you know Pakistani cinema has changed a lot in the past 5 years?
Yeah.
The production levels of it have gone sky high.
Absolutely.
And the films that have come out in the past few years alone, I would say sit equal or even above in terms of characters, storyline, above any Indian cinema, on par with Hollywood cinema, I think.
I just feel like they maybe haven't been given the resources or they haven't had as much breakthrough opportunities as, say, Indian cinema. When you talk about Bollywood, Indian cinema is huge and it's everywhere, but Pakistani cinema, there's some real gem stories in there that not a lot of people know about, but my mum, she talks to me about Pakistani cinema all the time.
I think the talent is there.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. So I'd just go with Pakistani cinema for that one.
Okay. Last question. Naughty Boy or Simon Cowell?
Naughty Boy, again, because I've worked with a few producers, but I've worked with Naughty Boy on a film and I have more of a, closer connection with him. And La 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 is a smash and he's been on like Asian Network a few times. I've met him, without a shadow of a doubt, Naughty Boy.
Okay. So that comes to the first question. Tell me about your experience of diversity working in the entertainment industry. Yeah,
it's a good question, man, because a lot of people are now talking about diversity as if it is like a hot topic, but I guess I've been working as a broadcaster and an actor within the UK for like the last, I'd say 10 years after graduating from university. And my experience with it, I don't know how to give a condensed way, but I can share my story in a sense of like first wanting to start out, wanting to be a radio presenter, worked in different radio stations, first radio station, started at uni, wanted to go off to like BBC, got opportunities on BBC Radio 1 Extra, BBC Asian Network, again, a black music station and a South Asian music station. Always had aspirations wanting to broadcast for BBC Radio 1. Got given opportunities to cover some shows, but never really landed a show there. So I think those are my early experiences of being a talent and seeing where you're positioned in spaces where you're given an opportunity due to the colour of your skin. Since then, obviously acting in projects, working on different projects, and feeling like, you get certain opportunities, you don't get certain opportunities due to your typecast, due to your religion, due to the colour of your skin, due to your ethnicity, due to the way that you speak, due to your class. There's so many different variables that come into play. I guess my experiences, I don't feel like I've had that many negative experiences. I wrote an article recently for Burnt Roti magazine, which is a female-led South Asian e-journal online run by Sharon Dhaliwal, and I interviewed her at Asian Network ages ago, and I wanted to write some stuff. I sent it over to her. And I was basically talking about how, for me, I didn't get given an opportunity on a radio station because I wasn't black enough, And that for me was like, okay, it's an interesting one because usually you're not getting an opportunity because you're too ethnic and you might not be white enough. So it just made me just start, thinking of like diversity and representation in a completely different way, because what is it like as South Asian brown people in this country? Are we seen as being on the same level in regards to our talents and our achievements as English white people and people from Africa and the Caribbean? And me personally, I think we're at the bottom level. In terms of entertainment and the media industry and creativity, for sure, we're not maybe fully there yet, but there's obviously so many success stories where people are counteracting that.
I want to say from my own experiences, and these are conversations we've had off camera as well, that we have managed to get into every level of society, whether that's from, whether that's the petrol pump or whether that's the hospital, right? You have Asian people who are driving taxis, you have Asian people in restaurants, you have people saving your lives in the hospital, right? And there is so much diversity within this community, right? Within our country. And that's even within politics, whatever your political leaning can lie. But I've always felt that representation isn't there. What do you think to that?
I think we're living in a very unprecedented time right now because our Prime Minister is Indian, our Mayor of London is Pakistani. So I think politically, we're seeing ourselves reflected in spaces that maybe weren't once upon a time there. I just think on that level, obviously, it's good in that sense. What happens is I think there's a thing called wrong representation. So now I think we're moving away where we should move away from the color of our skin to actually are the people who are representing us, are their values and their morals in like tuned in with us as well. Because you can have somebody from a middle class background who's earning a lot of money but turns round and doesn't share the same values or the same sentiments as somebody who's come from a working class background now. And the Tory party, for example, is one that is full up with people like that. So yeah, there is more representation. We can't argue that, but is it the right representation? That's always going to be subjective.
I think it comes down to talent as well. I feel that as British Asian, British Pakistani, British Muslim, British Arab as well, there is so much talent there if you look at it, right? But I feel you have to fly. Then that way you get noticed, right?
Absolutely.
If you look at someone like Riz Ahmed, he's probably one of the best British actors out there.
Absolutely.
If you look at Guz Khan, one of the best British actors out there, or comedians even, right? So if you look at Loki, one of the best British musicians out there. So the talent is there, but for some reason it's just not on every level, and you have to fly, you have to be the absolute best to get there. So I think that is the thing that I see, but it's just I don't feel that represented. And I know you talked about BBC Asia, and I think that's a great thing. It's a great thing to have your own space. It's a great thing to be homegrown. But do you think it pigeonholes us as well, and it just puts us over there? That way we're not allowed out?
Absolutely, 110% it does. I remember being naive and just wanting experience at a point in my career, and they were one of the first radio stations to give me an opportunity, and I was absolutely filled with joy, but I didn't understand what I was getting myself into. What I was walking into actually was a presentation of myself, identifying myself as just a South Asian broadcaster, as in I'm just a Pakistani broadcaster, you can hear me on the Asian network. Because of the name of the Asian network, it excludes a lot of people listening to it, i.e. white people or black people or people from different backgrounds. So you do pigeonhole yourself as a musician sometimes if you just want plays there, as a broadcaster if you just want experience there, which isn't a bad thing because they've been monumental in my journey and my career, as have they with so many other people who have come from there and gone on to amazing things. So I'll never forget that, and it's always love. But pigeonholing can sometimes be quite a bad thing for you in your career, because an opportunity might look good and pays good money and allows you to pay your bills, but you're shooting yourself in the foot by taking that opportunity, because where's the growth going to be in the next 5 to 10 years after that, for example?
One of the things I feel that interplays between us when we've had these conversations, right, is not just our culture, it's our religion as well. So, we were talking about being British Pakistani, or even people who are British Indian. So how has being a Muslim impacted your art?
Yeah, really good question, man. Massively, because that's who I am. That makes up my fabric as a human being. That's how I identify with my religion. It plays a part in all types of creativity. From examples, like I will be attached to projects due to the fact that I am a Muslim. Like I will be part of stories that are being told due to the fact that I am a Muslim. I will create my own content, i.e. my documentary that I've done for BBC Three called Finding Dad, which for people that don't know this individual, it's a story about a young British Muslim man going to search for his British Muslim father, who he's never met before in his entire life. It happens to be a Muslim story due to it being part of my identity. A short film that I've done called Shia Sunni, again, revolves around a Muslim narrative. A drama that I starred in, Informer, revolves around counter-terrorism, which revolves around the Muslim narrative. There's so many, and I've just made peace with the fact that if that's where my storytelling allows me to go, so be it, because I can't go against it, because that's part of my narrative. I've grown up in a Muslim family, I practice Islam, I'm not the best Muslim, I try to be. It's part of my identity, so wherever I go, that's gonna come out. In this interview, we're having a conversation due to the fact that that's part of my identity.
What I've really got from you is about how your story has been very much driven by your identity, by your heritage, your culture, your personal history, right? And one of the things that I've seen, and this is something people probably don't even know about, and they should look it up if they don't. There was a comedy maybe about 20, 30 years ago called It Ain't Half Hot Mum, and there were a few Indian characters on there, right?
This was a British show?
A British show,
Okay.
right? I believe it's on BBC.
I've never seen it.
And one of the characters was a blackface. So he was a white individual, but he was performing as a Pakistani. Now, we live in the day and age of identity where people are historically apologizing for many things that they have done, including actors apologizing for blackface, right? But even to this day, I see actors who are not Muslim, not Pakistani, playing Muslim Pakistani roles. And just because our space as British Pakistanis, as part of the diaspora, is so unique, you have to understand every little facet of it, because there's so much to it to understand how we would react in certain situations.
100%.
And I feel enraged when I see that.
Yeah, I felt the same way recently when I watched an old film, Jinnah. That was the main role who played Jinnah was a white Englishman.
So he's Ghaidi Azam, for people who don't know. The great leader is what Ghaidi Azam means.
Yeah.
And he was the founder of Pakistan.
But it was played by an amazing actor.
Christopher Lee.
An amazing actor, great artist, but the opportunity being given, how come that role was not given to a brown person, is what I was like. But it was back then, and we have to come a long way. We're in 2022 now, about to reach 2023. The world's changing, and I think if we keep like talking about the fact that there isn't this, there isn't that, and we just start carrying on doing things, I think that way it will be better for us, like moving in the future. But like we've grown up in an era where like Goodness Gracious Me was like the only show that was on TV. Now you don't have that. Now I can list you like We Are Lady Parts. Now I can list you so many different types of programs and shows that are coming out and being made because they're relevant, and they're relevant stories that are now starting to be told.
Times are changing.
Yeah, absolutely, man, 100%. I feel that in my career, like I'm part of a British Pakistani film that's coming out in February 2023 called What's Love Got to Do With It. It's the first time I've been on set where I've seen so many British Pakistanis. Thought and consideration was gone into casting these people in this project, but I've never experienced. That's one of my first times where I've sat back and been like, wow, okay.
That's amazing.
Yeah, but it's, my brain's going, times are actually changing because we're experiencing that now. Never experienced that before, you know, on that level. So yeah, I think if we stay positive and if anyone watches this or they have any position of power, just know that there is great storytelling from the Muslim diaspora and from the South Asian perspective as well as everywhere else. That's what I think, yeah.
I just want to say, I told Mim to watch that film, Jinnah.
You did. Yeah, you did. You did tell me to watch that, yeah. It was a good film.
Very good film.
I watched it. I take on your... You told me to watch quite a few things.
Yeah.
Recommendations that you give, that anyone gives. I like that about society, though, because that's what we have to share. We'll go in, talk to people, and I think one of the greatest things that we can do is like, I recently watched this, I learned this from it, it opened my eyes on this, you should check it out, and maybe learn something from it too. Because that's art, isn't it? You're sharing art between people. And if we've got similar like upbringings or similar experiences, if we share stuff like that with one another, it's only going to be best for both of us, I think.
What a wonderful way to end it.